Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about integers. Our goal for today is to locate positive and negative rational numbers on a number line, demonstrate and understanding the relationship between absolute value of a rational number and the distance on a number line, and use the correct symbol for absolute value. Make sure you write 9.1 on your next clean page of your notebook, and if you ever need to pause the video along the way, feel free to do so and then rejoin. Okay, before we can talk about integers, we need to understand what integers are. When you first learn to do math, you start with your counting numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you're a little kid, you count your Legos or whatever you're counting, blocks. But you don't start at 0. You always start at 1. Then you get introduced to the number 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. are called whole numbers. They are just counting numbers plus 0. Then we get to integers. Integers are positive and negative whole numbers and 0. So we have our -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. The last group of our real number system that we tend to work with are our rational numbers. Our rational numbers have fractions and negative fractions, decimals, repeating decimals, negative decimals. All of those are part of our rational number system, in addition to our integers, whole numbers, and counting numbers. So rational numbers include all of those. Then we have this group called irrational numbers. Irrational numbers we don't work with much in 6th grade. The most common one we'll see is pi, which that doesn't look much like a number, but pi is just a repeating decimal that goes on. Not repeating, I meant to say, a decimal that goes on forever and doesn't repeat and doesn't end. It goes on forever without repeating. There are other irrational numbers, but pi is the most common one we will see in middle school. This is all part of our real number system. So where do we use integers in the real world? Well, maybe you're a hockey player. If you're a hockey player and a defenseman, your coach might give you your plus minus for a game. You want to have a plus. That means that your line scored more than they were scored on. So that's where you might see it. Also, when you talk sea level, we have feet above sea level, like mountains, and below sea level. In weather, we live in Minnesota, we get below 0 temperatures. And in football, you might have a loss of yards. For example, if our quarterback is sacked, he might have a loss of yards. That would be a negative number. And in golf, you have positive and negative. In golf, negative is actually good. That would be how many strokes under par. So you will see them all over in real life. Let's talk about our number line. On a number line, numbers to the left of 0 are negative. And so these are negative integers, -1, -2, -3, etc. And to the right of 0 are positive integers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0 is in the middle here. It's neither positive nor negative. Now, remember when you're dealing with positive and negative numbers, the further left you go, that is terrible writing, sorry, the smaller your number is. So -6 is smaller than -1. So the further left you go, the smaller a number is. The further right you go, the bigger your numbers are. So +6 is bigger than +1. The numbers get bigger as you go right. They get smaller as you go left. I should make the word bigger, sorry. Using my mouse again instead of my writing pad. Okay, let's look at some vocabulary words we need to know. First vocabulary word we have is opposite. Two numbers that are the same distance from 0, but in the opposite direction. So I'm going to go back to this number line for a minute. -6, I don't have a +6 over here. How about -5 and +5 are both 5 spaces from 0, but in the opposite direction. So -5 and 5 are opposites. -1 and 1 are opposites. Integer. We've talked about this already, but let's get a definition down. Integers are whole numbers. Those are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. They're opposites: -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and 0. 0 is really included in those whole numbers. But okay, let's write an example of an integer for each of these situations. 32 feet underground. That would be -32 feet. 15 degrees above 0. That would be a +15. You can put a plus in front of it, but usually we don't have to. We know that if there's no sign, it's positive. A loss of 6 pounds, well, that would be a positive for me. It's a negative number, -6. 2 under par, again, that would be a negative. And a gain of 42 yards, that would be a +42. Now, absolute value, here's another definition we need. Absolute value is the distance a number is from 0. So, if I said, what's the absolute value of -5? -5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from 0. So the absolute value of -5 is 5. Absolute value is always a positive number. Always positive. Or as I like to say, it's absolutely, positively, always a positive number. And maybe you can remember absolute value. So you got to think of it as a distance. When we think of distance, we always think of positive numbers. I don't say, well, it's 5 miles from my house to the school, so it's -5 miles from the school to my house. No, it's still 5 miles. It's a distance. So a distance is always a positive number. Let's look at this symbol for absolute value. It's these 2 bars that go around the number. You do treat them as grouping symbols when you do order of operations, but it's 2 bars. That indicates absolute value. So what's the absolute value of 3? Well, how far is 3 from 0? 1, 2, 3. It is 3. What's the absolute value of -4? Well, -4 is 1, 2, 3, 4 from 0. So the absolute value of -4 is 4. 7 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from 0. Absolute value of 7 is 7. Now I want to show you a little bit different thing that you haven't seen yet. Here we have the absolute value of -3. Well, that is 3. But you notice I have this negative on the outside. That's not part of the absolute value. It's on the outside. So the negative, or the opposite of the absolute value of -3, is -3. Because this is 3, but I have that negative on the outside. That's kind of a tricky one. Your homework is to IXL's M1 and M5 to a SMART score of 80. I just kind of want to show you what sort of questions are in there. It says for M1, you might see questions like, which integer represents this scenario? 5 more inches of rain this year? Was that a positive or a negative? I see the word more. That sounds like a positive. Okay, the next one. This is the type of questions you have for M6. Number line shows a point at 6. How far is it from 0? Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from 0. So the absolute value of 6 is 6. That's it. Have a great day.